The labor of removing Cerberus, the guardian of the entrance to the Underworld. Eurystheus, this time with stern determination, told Hercules,
Hercules, you are to capture and bring here Cerberus, the hound of the Underworld.
The name Cerberus means dog of the roof of darkness, from the ancient words kainos and erevos. The word kainos is a root for the word canine, and erevos the word for the dark veil covering the entrance to the underworld. Cerberus was the guard of the entrance to the world of the deceased, and had 3 heads attached to a single body. Cerberus's father was Typhon, and was a sibling to the 2-headed dog Orthus, which was a guard for Garion's red cattle. Cerberus was also a sibling to the Hydra of Lerna, that guarded the lake which had a hole at the bottom, allowing for a view of the underworld. The name Hades means the unseen, and is therefore the deity over the unseen world. Hercules made his descent through an entrance at Tainaron, the most famous of the various entrances to the underworld. After Hercules descended into the underworld, he had an audience with Hades, and asked if he could take Cerberus. Hades agreed if Hercules could do so naturally, and without using a weapon. Hercules approached Cerberus, and using the lion-hide cloak, wrapped the necks of the hound, and then proceeded to carry Cerberus away. Cerberus was then brought up from Hades through a chasm in the earth, dedicated to Clymenus, next to the sanctuary of Chthoniya, at Hermione. Hercules returned to Eurystheus, who said,
Now there is no guard to the gate of the Underworld.
Interpretation of the myth with the symbolic elements. It is a common interpretation that the purpose for Cerberus was to keep the dead behind the gate and prevent them from leaving. But if that was the case, Cerberus would need a single head facing the entrance. Each head was there to guard each direction except that of the gate. Therefore, the heads were not there to keep the unliving inside, but to keep the living out. Those no longer living are not trying to leave and return to the world of the living. It is the living who are interested in passing the gate which the hound of Hades will not allow. This expresses a fundamental philosophy, that there is to be no fear of death. Considering that passing the gate is an end of life, is not according to the heritage of this myth, but the beginning of a new life of which they do not wish to leave. The implications of this are tremendous. It gives freedom and the ability of heroes to act according to their principles, without the crippling fear of ending their mortal lives when confronted with challenges. Crossing the passage is to go from the seen world to the unseen. Even the word paradise comes from the Greek words paradiso, parallel view, meaning paradise is the worldview parallel to this life. Much of the commotion in this life is rooted in a fear of the afterlife and the inherent mortality possessed. By removing Cerberus, Hercules removed this fear in the unknown. He gave view of the afterlife. Hades put the restriction on Hercules to capture Cerberus naturally, and without using weapons, because there are unnatural ways to bypass the fear of death, such as various medicines. Hercules was restricted from using weapons because this labor requires one to embrace their mortality and vulnerability. The lion hide was needed to capture Cerberus, though. Remember that the lion hide was obtained by Hercules defeating his ego, and controlling his ego acted as an impenetrable armor. Therefore, the fear of death is a consequence of the uncontrolled ego. The tradition of Hercules does not allow for a fear of death. Extra notes. Homer, Iliad 8:366, ff. Translation Latimore, Greek epic 8th BC. If in the wiliness of my heart I, Athene, had had thoughts like his, when Hercules was sent down to Hades of the gates, to hail back from Erebos, the dark, the hound of the grisly death god. Homer, Odyssey 11:623, ff. Translation Shuring, Greek epic 8th BC. The ghost of Hercules addresses Odysseus in Hades. He, Eurystheus, once sent me even here to Hades, to fetch away the hound of Hades, for he thought no task could be more fearsome for me than that. But I brought the hound out of Hades' house and up to earth, because Hermes helped me on my way, and gleaming-eyed Athene. Pseudo-Apollodorus, Bibliotheca 2, 125, translation Aldrich, Greek mythographer, 2nd century A.D. Hercules asked Pluton, Hades, for Cerberus, and was told to take the hound if he could overpower it without using any of the weapons he had brought with him. He found Cerberus at the gates of Acheron, and there, pressed inside his armor and totally covered by the lion's skin, he threw his arms round its head and hung on, despite bites from the serpent tail, until he convinced the beast with his chokehold. Then, with it in tow, he made his ascent through Troisenos. After showing Cerberus to Eurystheus, he took it back to Hades' realm. Pseudo-Hyginus, Fabulae 151. From Typhon, the giant, and Echidna were born the three-headed dog Cerberus. Summary. Although this labor is very popular, it is the most simple and meant to avoid any confusion. Overcoming a fear of death requires an ego under control. It is a common misconception that the task of Cerberus was to keep the deceased behind the gate, but it is the living who wish to pass into the underworld, and Cerberus keeps them out.